Welcome back, everybody. This is Modern with Randy. I am Randy. As always, guys, if you like what I'm doing, you like what you're seeing, go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything that I'm putting out, as well as don't be afraid to leave a comment. Anything you like, you don't like, always happy to hear feedback. And today we're going to talk about Necrodominance, the deck that did overall well in the Pro Tour and has since been putting up numbers in challenges, leagues, the other events that are going on, like actual paper events and such. And so let's start off with the main reason or the main card of the deck here, Necrodominance. It is a triple black legendary enchantment. So you skip your draw step, and at the beginning of the end step, you may pay any amount of life. If you do, draw that many cards. So if you want to draw one card, you pay 1 life. If you want to draw 5 cards, you pay 5 life, etc. Although your maximum hand size now is 5, and then if a card or token will be put anywhere in your graveyard or put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So you can't do the grief package or the grief scam package essentially once you have Necrodominance out, things like that. So pretty powerful card. Let's see what we're doing with this then. So you'll notice right off the bat we're only playing 13 lands, on paper at least, because we're playing playing 2 Phyrexian Towers, 9 swamps, and then Takenuma and an Orberg. Then on top of that, we're playing another 12 of the spell lands, essentially. So we're playing 8 of the new ones. The Fell from Profane, which is an instant to destroy a creature or planeswalker, and then the backside is you can pay 3 life. Excuse me. You pay 3 life, so it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, and it taps for a swamp. Then we're playing 4 Bolgart Troller, exile the target player's graveyard for 3 and a 3/1, and then flip side, pay 3 life, goes to play untapped as a black mana. Then we're also playing 4 Malakir Rebirth. The main reason why we're playing this one over any of the other ones is because we do have Grief in the main deck, so it does give us the option to Grief Scam on turn 1. Then to go along with our lands, we're playing 4 Inconsistent Kozilek and 1 Thoughtseize as our hand disruption spells, 4 Fatal Push because it's Fatal Push to the card. Moving up the chain here, we're playing 4 Bowmasters. To no one's surprise, we're playing black, so we should be playing Bowmasters. The ring is running around everywhere. You're going to want to have Bowmasters to punish people for wanting to play the ring. Same thing here with Shieldred. Great finisher for our deck, as well as a great way to let us draw through our deck. Notably, with Necrodominance out and Shieldred out, you're going to pay 1 life and then gain 2 life when you draw that card. So you're effectively gaining a life every time you're drawing a card. Obviously, it's not. You can't continuously do it, right? Like you have to. So if you have 9 life, you can only draw 8 cards and then go up to 16. So you can't. You get to ebb and flow. You can't just like continuously draw in one turn. And then of course we're playing Grief because good card. We have the Grief Scam package here with the Malakir Rebirth, and then to go along with our card draw of Necrodominance, we also have 4 copies of the One Ring because card's good. It's not too hard to explain why we're playing this card. Everyone knows why you play this card. Draws a bunch of cards. Let's just see through our deck. All that fun jazz. Now, you may be thinking, okay, it's great that we can draw a million cards. We'll have Necrodominance out. Our hand size is going to be 5. So what are we doing to negate the fact that we're drawing, 15 cards and only going to keep 5 of them? Well, we have 2 ways to negate that at the end step here. We have March of Retrosaro. So we get to kill any creatures or planeswalkers as long as we have 1 black mana up, and then we can pitch a bunch of our black spells with this. That way we can gain our life back as well. And then of course we're playing 4 Soul Spike. This wonderful card that was worth a nickel before the Pro Tour and now is worth, I think, $70 a piece because magic printings. So Soul Spike is a 7 mana instant for 5 and 2 black. You can exile 2 black cards from your hand rather than pay the spell's cost. It deals 4 damage to any target and you gain 4 life. So notably, what our goal here is with this deck is to take away our opponent's cards, draw more cards than our opponent can ever hope to draw, Soul Spike them out of the game, and then, because even if we do Soul Spike them all 4 times, it's only 4, 8, 12, 16. So that's not going to be enough to kill them. So we're hoping that between our 16 damage from Soul Spikes, them fetching, shocking, and us either pinging with Bowmasters, getting us Shieldred, draw trigger off, something like that, to just do the rest of the 4 damage that we need to them. But deck has been very powerful overall. It draws a bunch of cards. It sees most of its library every game if you're doing it correctly. Obviously, the biggest thing with this deck is learning how to Necrodominance, right? Because it's not always correct just to, turn 3. Well, I guess technically we can turn 2 Necrodominance with Friction Tower, but turn 2, turn 3 is not correct just to Necrodominance draw 17 cards. That's not always the correct line, right? And so that's the biggest struggle with you are going to pick up this deck or try to learn this deck or do anything with this deck, really, is you need to figure out how to Necrodominance. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know that I have all the right answers or anything like that. I do think Necrodominance is a lot of, if you're just trying to value / keep up with your opponent and stuff, you want to probably be drawing only up to, like, 6 or 7 cards, like going up to a hand size of 6 or 7. So that means, like, if you Necrodominance, you have 1 card in hand. I think your first time you should probably be going up to 5, like drawing 5 cards, going up to 6 cards in hand. That way you can discard, the extra land or whatever. And then if you do hit Soul Spike, whatever, that's great. You can, pitch it, and then you're not discarding anything. And I think it's a lot of this deck and a lot of the power behind this deck is learning that ability and learning where you need to go full ham and draw, 10 plus cards, and where you need to just only draw, 5 or less, essentially. And I think that's a big problem with this deck, or the big issue people are going to have if you go pick up this deck. Obviously, it's not a cheap deck to pick up, so if you're going to pick this up, I suggest practicing a lot with it on Magic Online, learning the ins and outs of it before you want to invest all that money, depending on what your collection size looks like. Because if you need to pick up Shieldreds, the One Rings, and Soul Spikes, that's a lot of money just to drop along with Bowmasters. But the deck is very powerful. I think it has a little bit of a high learning curve. I think the biggest way you lose with this deck a lot is essentially locking yourself out of the game with Necrodominance. I've had this happen to me a couple times with my opponents where they will full ham, draw a bunch of cards with Necrodominance. They miss on Soul Spike, they miss on March of Wretched Charles. Now they're discarding down to 5 cards, and I hit them for a couple points of damage, or I flage them and put them down to like 2 life, and like they can't afford now to draw more cards, and so they're stuck with the 5 cards they have in hand, trying to mix up and work. And that's probably the best way to kind of punish anybody who's new on Necrodominance as well, is get their life total lower, make them have to have limited resources, because that's, the whole goal with Necrodominance is that you get to draw a million cards, right? You get to draw so many cards with this. So I do think that it's a great deck. It does have, like I said, a high learning curve, but I think this is the way you kind of want to see this deck built, essentially, is you want to have a bunch of these so-called land cards in the deck. That way you are being able to have the highest density of actual black cards for your March of Wretched Sorrows, your Soul Spikes, things like that. But anyway, moving on to the sideboard here. It's a pretty cut and dry sideboard overall. Makes honestly perfect sense. So we're playing 4 Break the Ice. We've seen a bunch of the Tron decks or Eldrazi decks running around. We want to be able to hit their lands. We want to be able to stop them from casting 4 mana spells on turn 2. Not fun. No one wants to deal with that, right? Then we have 4 Dauthi Voidwalkers here, basically for the graveyard decks, things like that. Same thing with this, a good value 2-drop against like the control matchups, things like that. And same thing with the 3 Surgical Extractions. We have the Gordiel's deck that's running around. We have Living End still running around. We have Flages that are pain to deal with. We want to be able to hit this. We want to be able to stop our opponents from doing things. 2 Force of Despair. This card is mainly in there just for the Nadu combo deck. If they want to start comboing off, great. I'm glad that you made a million tokens. And in turn, I'm going to pitch cast Force of Despair. You don't have any creatures on the board. I'm going to go to my turn. And then, of course, Toxic Deluge is definitely here for more removal. Mainly here for the Boros energy deck, the Mardu energy deck, the Naya energy deck that's coming out. Basically all the energy decks, right? The decks that are going to flood the board with a bunch of little creatures. Excuse me, as well as it's good against Nadu as well. Being able to have an early board wipe, things like that. Like I said, sideboard's pretty cut and dry. Break the Ice is there because Tron is horrendous. Like, Tron is not horrendously huge. That is not true. Eldrazi is horrendously huge right now. They got the new Soul Land. They're going to be playing it. Makes sense why you're going to be bringing in Break the Ice. Same thing with Surgicals, Dauthi Voidwalker. We have a bunch of little graveyard strike strategies running around. Let's just shut them off. Let's answer Flages, make sure they're dead. Let's kill Nadu's combo turn, and let's make sure that we can keep the board clear so we can draw more cards. overall, like I said, guys, this is a deck that you're going to see running into the RCQ season for sure. You are definitely going to get soul spiked at some point in time in your RCQ season, unless you just spike your first RCQ and never see the deck. But definitely a deck that's going to be running around. Definitely a deck to keep your eye out for, and definitely a deck that you guys might want to pick up and try. It's a lot of fun. It's great when you're just able to like slam Necrodominance or all 17 cards, and you get to feel like the biggest brain player in the room as you soul spike your opponent 3 times in a row on the same turn. But as always, guys, if you like what I'm doing, you like what you're seeing, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.